everybody on Facebook. Just wanted to start off today by, again, kind of restating the message that I gave yesterday. We will be closed this Sunday and next Sunday. We're going to close the church building for access because there has been a recent kind of outbreak within our community. There's, again, possible exposure for us here at church. And because we do have some high-risk folks within our congregation, we want to make sure that everyone is safe as they possibly can be. I will say this, I've talked to some people in the medical profession, and they are suggesting if you are concerned in any way, please go get tested. There are a variety of places that are doing tests. The clinics here in town will be also offering tests, so if you would like to go get one of those, please do. Please stay safe with your family and loved ones, staying at social distancing, and we will hopefully be able to meet again soon. Now, we are definitely going to be closed this Sunday and next Sunday, the church building that is. We will I'll talk about it next Sunday, whether or not we're going to stay closed for a little bit longer. We've seen some dramatic spikes in the positive tests of coronavirus within our state. So depending on what will happen in the coming week or so, we will make a decision on whether or not we stay at a distance or whether or not we start coming back again to our church congregation. So hopefully that clears a couple of things up for you. If you do have questions, feel free to message the church here on either the video site, or you can send a direct message if you would rather. We will try to get those questions answered for you as quickly as possible. Because we are, again, in the distancing portion of this, I want to remind everybody about we still need to be giving. We still do have plans as of right now to do our vacation Bible school at the end of the month. We still are doing plans right now to have our youth camp during this middle of the month. So because of that, we still have needs that we need to be able to fund. And so we do ask that you continue to be faithful in your giving. You've been wonderful of this over the last few months. A reminder, our address here, if you want to send checks in, is 236 South Main Street, Fairfax, Oklahoma, 74637. We also have our Easy Tide app, which we can link here, that you can go onto and give online. So a couple of options on that. Do want to ask that you would please continue to be faithful and generous in your giving. Also, I want to start us off this morning in a word of prayer, remembering not only those that are being affected by the coronavirus right now, but also we've had some unfortunate tragedies within our community in the last week and within our faith family, so we want to lift people up in prayer. I hope that you are encouraged this morning. I hope that you are able to find a link with the Lord this morning, even though we aren't fellowshipping together. So if you'll bow your heads with me this morning, we're going to open the word of prayer. Lord God, we do ask this morning that you would bless us here. Father, it's something that we need more than anything right now, simply because we seem to be so helpless. We seem to be so confused. And Lord, it's just one of these times where we think that we have kind of a grasp on things, and then things start to fall apart. Lord, we do ask that you are with those that are fighting this virus right now, that you would heal them quickly, that you would keep us safe from contraction of that. Lord, ultimately, that you would give us the wisdom that we need to be able to persevere and continue on doing the right things for the safety of one another and also for the advancement of your kingdom. Lord, we do lift up the Rogers family today as they have experienced a loss this week within their family. We ask that you are with them and give them comfort and peace, even in this time of great sadness in their lives. Father, we also ask for our country this morning, that you would continue to work. Lord, help us to make sense of what's going on with all the different tension that we are facing within our local communities, within our state, within our nation. It just seems like we are so divided right now. There's so much unrest. And we know, Lord, that even though we don't see an outcome, we don't see a future, you are always working things out for your good. And so, Father, we pray that we might be able to find our place in this situation, even in these times that are difficult. We pray that we can see your answers, see your truth, and see your work in everything that's being done. We again ask for you to bless this time that we are here together to worship, whether we are together or whether we are spread far apart. And we ask these things in your name. Amen. We're going to take some time to worship through song this morning, and so in just a second, we're going to begin our time. We're going to sing "Great Is Thy Faithfulness" this morning. Changes continue to worship this morning in song. We're going to sing another old trusty one, Trust and Obey. So follow with us this morning as we sing. Singing together one more song this morning, just a closer walk with thee. Lift your voices as we sing.
As I
This morning we're going to continue to go through the book of Nehemiah. And so this morning we're going to look at the second chapter, the first couple of verses there, the second chapter of Nehemiah. So if you'll turn with me in your copy of God's Word, we'll go to the Lord in prayer this morning before we read. Lord God, we ask your blessing again upon this time of reading your Scripture and preaching your Word. Father, we pray that we are encouraged, that we are strengthened through the message that you have preserved for us. We ask that you would open our hearts that we might receive it. Open our eyes that we may see things the way that you do, Father, and also commission our bodies that we may be able to go and do the work that you have set aside for us. Lord, we thank you for the many ways that you care for us, that you have blessed us, and how you love us. It's in Christ's name we pray. Amen. Now this morning we're going to talk a little bit about fear. I know it's something that we all experience from time to time, and maybe even more right now than we traditionally do, just because there's so many things going on that we just don't have an awareness of. We don't know what's going on, what's going to be happening. And so we're going to look at, kind of this idea of someone ought to do something. And so we're going to look at these examples of Nehemiah, and this morning we're going to learn how to face fear. So we're going to talk about facing fear even in our own lives. So as we kind of finished up last week talking about Nehemiah's prayer, it ended with this really kind of interesting thing that Nehemiah was the cupbearer to the king. And so we said that Nehemiah had a position, he had a place within the kingdom, within that royal palace, of actually being elevated to a position that he was very close to the king. He had some influence there, because he was the one that would literally protect the king from being poisoned and from getting sick over eating poor food. So that kind of leads us to where we're at this morning. So we're going to look at the first couple of verses here today. So if you'll follow along with me, we're going to read verses 1 through 3 of chapter 2 of Nehemiah. In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was before him, took up the wine and gave it to the king. Now I had not been sad in his presence. And the king said to me, "Why is your face sad, seeing you are not sick? This is nothing but sadness of the heart." Then I was very much afraid. I said to the king, "Let the king live forever. Why should not my face be sad when the city, the place of my father's graves, lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire?" So we see here that it's obvious that Nehemiah was afraid. And really the big reason he was is because of his position within the king. We have to understand that this king, King Artaxerxes, was so powerful, and in the time and place that it was, that a man's life could be commanded to be taken from him just as a simple word from the king. And so it was oftentimes that if anyone displeased the king, that would just be he would be dismissed, he would be put to death, and that would be that. And so for Nehemiah to show in the king's presence that he was downcast, that he was saddened, it could have displeased the king, and the king could have very well just said, "Hey, get this guy out of here. I don't want him in my palace anymore." And so whenever the king acknowledges that, "Hey, Nehemiah, you don't look so good. Nehemiah, you kind of look sad. You're not sick, so what's going on?" That frightened Nehemiah because he literally feared for his own life. The reality is we're all afraid of something. Even those that may seem like they're very brave oftentimes come up with very interesting and strange phobias of something that they're afraid of. Now, fear is something that we constantly encounter throughout our lives, and a lot of times fear has to do with not understanding and not knowing what's going to happen next. And so when we all face fear, it's something that we all encounter in our lives. It's the way that we deal with it that determines what type of a person we are, how useful we are as a person, and oftentimes leads to how we literally live out our lives. And so the question that I want to start off with this morning is, do you allow fear to control you, or are you in control of your fear? You know, we see here that Nehemiah says, "I was very much afraid." Okay, he starts off by saying, I was scared to death. I was quaking in my boots. But then he still went ahead and he answered the king and told him honestly what was affecting him. Because we remember a couple weeks ago when we kind of started this, Nehemiah was broken over the fact that Jerusalem was not rebuilt. Nehemiah was broken over the fact that his kinsmen that were there were not living the life that God had designed for them. That they were living in a shameful existence, that the walls of Jerusalem were torn down, which left them open to all kinds of attack and problems through surrounding enemies. So he answers the king honestly. It's been said that courage is being afraid, but doing it anyway. It's understanding that, yes, I am scared of this. I'm afraid of what's about to happen. I have fear, but I'm not going to allow fear to control me. I'm going to control my fear. And that's the definition of courage. Courageous people do things in the face of fear. As believers, as Christians, as people that follow God, we can't allow fear to stop us from doing what God has called us to do. It's so easy for us to fall into that trap of making excuses, of having problems with things because we are afraid and we want to get away from that situation as quickly as possible. That's allowing fear to control us, to direct the situation. Reality for us is that fear can either be your master, and it can have control over you, and it can dictate what you can do, or you can allow the fear that you experience, the things that you don't understand, you don't know what's going to happen, and so because of that you have fear in your life, to influence wisdom in your life, to allow that to grow. We can allow fear in our lives to control us and to push us down, or we can allow that same fear to help us to think through things, help us to think through that fear, to understand it more fully. What actually is going on? What are we experiencing? What are we so afraid of? Oftentimes having knowledge reduces the amount of fear that we experience. We see little children, and before they really grasp the concept of a lot of things, there's a lot of times that little bitty children are not afraid of anything. There's a video circulating around the internet today that it's a dog, and they're throwing a stick to this dog, and the dog goes and picks it up, and then he drops it and kind of runs off. And there's a little boy, he's a toddler, maybe 1 or 2 years old, and he walks over and he picks up the stick, and what's the truth of what he picked up is he picked up a big old snake. And of course the dad gets in there, he freaks out, and throws the snake off. The kid didn't know, he had no idea, he wasn't afraid, he wasn't aware that this is something that he should fear. And as little children, sometimes that's the way we are. We don't know that there are things that we can fear. But as we experience more and more in life, we see that there are certain things that can be harmful to us, there are certain things that can cause problems in our lives, and what that develops in us is it can develop fear. Now, it can develop into a phobia where we are afraid of it and we want to avoid that at all costs, where we can be crippled by it, or we can allow that knowledge that we have from those experiences in our life to grow us in wisdom that we might understand and be more effective in the different ways that we actually approach these possibly dangerous situations in life. So fear is not always a negative thing. Sometimes it helps us in understanding what we should and should not be doing. The problem is when we allow fear to have control. The other thing that fear can do in our lives is it can allow us to grow in our faith because of our dependence on something greater than us. When we see a situation and we try to understand it as best we can, and we still don't understand exactly how to accomplish the task or what the outcome will be, the only thing that we can rely upon at that point is faith. Faith is believing and trusting in those things that are unseen. So we can allow that fear in our lives to strengthen our faith because we are trusting and we are persevering. We're pushing forward in spite of our fear, our apprehension, those things that we just aren't certain of, those things that we are afraid of, but we're putting our trust in something greater than us. The kind of image there would be that same little child in a swimming pool. And so we've all seen this before. We've got the little kid and they've got their water wings on and they're looking all cute in their little bathing suits, and they get up to the edge of the pool and they are a little bit nervous about jumping in because they've had a little bit of experience with that water before. They know that it splashes in their eyes and gets in their nose, and that's an uncomfortable situation. They know that if they're in that water and they maybe haven't trusted those little water wings they have left, they sink because they aren't yet understanding how to swim and how to overcome that. And so there's some fear, there's some apprehension as they approach the edge of the pool. But in that pool is that daddy or that mama sitting there going, "It's okay, I've got you. Jump in." And what they do is they place their trust in their parent. They place their trust that this is someone who's never let me down. This is someone that is there to protect me and to take care of me. That they say it's okay, even though I'm afraid, it's something that I can do. And I love watching little kids just kind of bail off and just put their ultimate faith and trust. And that's how we need to approach life sometimes, where we're just bailing off and we're jumping into something we're not really 100% sure of what the outcome will be, because God is telling us, "Trust me, I've got you." See, that's the way that we need to approach our fears, is understanding that God is there. Because if we allow fear to control our lives, what we're doing is we're making fear more powerful than God. In our minds, we say, "Well, yes, I believe God, but I have this fear. I have this thing that is in control of me. I have this thing that is greater than me." I don't believe that's anything that we actually want to say out loud, but the reality is that the actions of our lives and our behaviors show that, even though we aren't saying it out loud. Don't allow fear to become more powerful than God in your life. So my question for you this morning is God calling you to do something, but your fear is holding you back? Is God asking you to take a step in your life to change something, to break away from something, but you're too afraid to leave it? Whether it be a relationship that's toxic, or a substance abuse, something that is controlling you and you're too afraid of the pain or the things that you'll be walking away from. Maybe God's calling you to do something to further His kingdom. Maybe He's calling you to surrender to the ministry. Maybe He's calling you to serve within your church or within your community, and you're just afraid of what people might think, or you're afraid of what it may cost you. And because of that fear, you're not doing what God has called you to do. Are you allowing that fear to have a stronghold in your life? Are you allowing what people may think of you and the fear that you have about that to prevent you from doing something? Are you afraid of the things that you just can't see adding up? Well, if I do this, even though I know God is calling me to do it, and He's showing me over and over again that this is something He wants me to do, but it's going to cost me so much. Will I be able to maintain the lifestyle that I have now? Will I have enough money to make it through? Friends, what if you don't? Where does that put you? I'll tell you, it puts you in a place where the only answer is to have faith and to trust in the Lord. See, God is greater than your fears. Recognizing and admitting that you have fear in your life is the first step to overcoming. If you don't admit that you have fear, if you don't admit that there's a problem, how can you ever solve anything? Sometimes the first step is saying, yes, that's something I am afraid of. Then you can begin to deal with that. You can allow God to start working in your life. And just like Nehemiah, when he answered the king, he said, "Let the king live forever. Why should my face not be sad? Why shouldn't I be sad, king? My family, the city, the place that I'm from, they're in ruins. I should be sad because this is a part of me." Just like Nehemiah, we need to trust God to give us the boldness to accomplish the task. It's the next step that we have to do. Allow God to embolden us. Allow God to remove that fear. Allow God to break down that barrier in our lives. You know, the story in Scripture of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, the day before, right before he's taken by the guards of the priests, Jesus prays to the Lord, "Look, if there's any other way that this can happen, if you can take this cup from my hands, please do, but if not, I'll fulfill the task that you've given me. I'll have the boldness to do it." He trusted and realized that if God has called us to do something, this is the same just as it was for Jesus in the garden, that it is for you and me today. If God has called you to do something, He is going to give you the strength that you need to finish the task. You have to remember that we are all players in this great game that God has set forth, this story that He is establishing that's even being written right now. We're all parts. We're all playing a part in this. We can't walk off. We can't remove ourselves from it because of fear. Because if we do, then we're leaving a gap there. We're leaving a space that God has intended for you. You're walking out of God's will into your own fear. We cannot allow fear to control us. Nehemiah had every reason to be fearful. Nehemiah had every reason to have great concern, to have, a thought that I'm going to lose my life over this. But instead of being fearful, he was bold. Instead of allowing fear to control him, he allowed God to accomplish His purpose in him. What's fear holding you back from? What are you not doing because you're afraid? Even this morning, cast those fears upon God. Cast those concerns upon Him. Ask Him to bolden you. Ask Him to strengthen you. Ask Him to help you accomplish the goal that He has set forth for you. A lot we can learn from Nehemiah. We're going to continue in this book for a little while, and we'll see next week that Nehemiah's bold answer to the king actually produces some results, even though he was afraid. So, in the face of fear, be courageous. In the face of fear, continue going. I hope that is something that you can commit yourself to doing, even today, going forward. Not allowing fear to have control, but allowing God to have control over your life. We're going to bow in a word of prayer as we close out our time of worship this morning. I hope that you share this. I hope that you're encouraged by it. And I hope that we can see you again very soon. So if you'll bow with me in prayer, we're going to close our service. Father, we admit that there are often times in our life that we are controlled, that we are consumed by fear. Rather than following you, we follow our own desire to not experience pain or not to experience these things that we call fear. We don't want to experience it because it's just overwhelming. We allow it to have more power in our lives than it should. But Father, this morning we ask that you would take away those fears that are in our lives, that are things that we just shouldn't even be contemplating. Help us to overcome those fears that are very real within our own lives, maybe because of experiences that we've had. Help us to trust that you can help us to overcome. Help us to have faith in you, even though we don't see the results. We don't see what the outcome ultimately will be, but you do. Help us to live out the calling that you have for us in our lives. Help us to follow you in all boldness, in all courage, and in all things. Father, we ask that you would just heal our land, that you would heal our hearts, that you would heal our bodies even in this place today. Lord, I know so many are afraid right now because we don't see the outcome that you have set aside for us. Regardless of that, Lord, I pray that we can say that we have faith, that we know, and that we trust, Lord, that you do have an answer, that you do have a purpose, Lord, that you will make things work out for your good. We thank you for allowing us to be a part of this. We ask that you keep us safe until we can once again be together. And I pray these things in the precious, sweet name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Until we see you again, have a great week.